Today we're journeying to the land of the rising sun.
Welcome to Vacation Mavens, a family travel podcast with ideas for your next vacation and tips to get you out the door. Here are your hosts, Kim from Stuffed Suitcase and Tamara from We Three Travel.
Kim, I can't believe the last time I really talked to you was when we were together in Scottsdale in April.
I know. It's been a crazy travel season for us. I mean, good. I love that travel's back and everything, but it's also crazy because I thought we would be talking more. And we've, seen each other so much at the beginning of the year. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, summer's almost over. Not quite, but yeah.
That was like our intent was to have, to have this monthly, and we're just, we're struggling, guys. So if anyone is still listening and subscribed to us, which I hope that they are, we're going to do a quick little rundown of some of our recent travels. And now you'll see why we haven't been able to connect and record an episode.
Yeah, exactly. It's been insane. Yeah. So the last time you guys heard from us, we were headed to Scottsdale, which was middle of April. And we both, I think, had an amazing trip there. We both published our articles. So you can always head to We Three Travel and Stuffed Suitcase and kind of see the stuff that we covered. But I loved Scottsdale. It was great.
Yeah, we had, I think Scottsdale just continues to be a place I want to go back to because there's so many beautiful resorts and hotels. So there's always some place new to check out. There's amazing spas. And then this time we did a lot of really cool activities.
Yeah. I loved how it was really, I think Scottsdale is a great destination for kind of being able to do outdoorsy things. Like we did hot air balloons, horseback riding, a few different things, but we also did wine tasting and shopping and went to some museums. And then, like you said, went to an amazing spot, the Phoenician, and Scottsdale, if you are a spa person, that's where you want to go.
Yeah. I've been watching our friend Colleen that lives out in Scottsdale, and seems to be hopping around another spa every day. And I'm like, wow, I want to come be your friend right now.
I think everyone's been saying that. I want your job.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, but I would definitely say, romantic getaway, girlfriend getaway. Scottsdale is amazing for that. I mean, there's plenty to do with the family as well because of all those outdoor activities, but definitely check out. I know I have an itinerary. You have some great suggestions on things to do in the summer and how to manage the heat out there. So definitely check those out on our website to see more.
So where did you head after Scottsdale?
I went right from Scottsdale to Tucson to see Hannah for a little bit. Yeah. And then the following week, I went to Paso Robles, which I've learned. I always said it was Paso Robles.
Yeah.
And it's actually Robles. And I'm I feel silly saying Robles.
Yeah, it sounds like marbles. Yeah.
But that is a wine region in Central California near San Luis Obispo. And it is, I just love it. I was there, I think it was 9 or 8 years ago with the family, and we were checking out some family-friendly wineries there. But it has just kind of exploded in terms of the number of wineries, but also really good food now. The downtown has expanded. I stayed in a new boutique hotel that was just, I loved it. It was just so cool. Yeah. It has a rooftop bar. It had it had a champagne vending machine in the lobby.
Oh, I saw that. I saw your story on that. Yeah.
So I had a great time out there. I definitely think anyone that's into wine, put that on your radar as a region to visit. You can easily spill a long weekend. I had a couple of really wonderful spots that I went for wine tasting, just those perfect, incredible views, great food, wonderful wine, So I think where many, many years ago, it was newer to the scene, or that was well known for J. Lore or some of the bigger names. There's just so much going on out there. So where did you go next? Because I know you were really busy right after our Scottsdale trip too.
Yeah, I had kind of 3 trips back to back. So I did go to Disney World for a conference, and I got to ride the new Tron ride. And I also checked out a new hotel, which was the Contemporary Hotel, which I had never been to. So I loved that. I really do love the, splurging on those Disney World hotels that have the monorail access, and the ones we've been at Riviera too with the Skyliner. Because man, it's amazing how much easier it is just to get into and not have to deal with the bus system. Because then whenever I have to wait for a bus to one of the parks, and it's inevitably I get there and I'm the last one, I've got to wait for 20 minutes or something.
Yeah. So I will say that's what I liked the most about Disneyland, because I've never stayed on park, in Disney World. I've only stayed at partner hotels and by hotels.
Yeah, it is a big splurge for sure. I have a great article about that, though, because we splurged and we rented DVC points to be able to stay. And it's still not cheap. It was for the graduation trip and stuff. And this one is a conference hotel rate. So I'm definitely not saying it's like cheap, affordable. But if you do want to splurge, renting DVC points, and I have a link. So if anyone wants it, or you can look up the how I saved $2,000+ at Disney World. And I have how we did that in there. And I actually just tried to do it for Disneyland, but they didn't have any availability because Disneyland only has one property, almost two. So anyways, I did that. But then right after that, I also went on another Alaskan cruise, which you and I have talked about a few times. So I'll soon have a couple of articles updated, but this was more of just a family cruise. So I didn't actually treat it like a work trip, which was kind of nice to
Which cruise ship were you on this time, though? Because I feel like, was it last summer that you did Celebrity?
Holland last August,
Holland, okay.
which I absolutely loved. I loved Holland. I haven't done Celebrity in Alaska yet, but Holland America was awesome. This time we did Norwegian because my family has status with there, and so they like to book Norwegian. And we did the Bliss, which we have been on the Bliss before for a little media sailing when they started it.
And so that's the one that we took to Alaska also.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Family trip.
Yeah. So anyway, so that was that. And then I had one other conference then back to Disneyland. So I hit both the parks within about 3 weeks of each other, but that was a lot of fun and just kind of...
You should have really had a Disney cruise in the middle.
I should have. That would have been perfect. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But anyway, so that was kind of a wrap up for me. And my final trip that I did was I went at the end of May and went to San Antonio for another conference. So it feels like most of mine were conferences. I was just like conferenced out. But San Antonio is kind of a cool city. It's been a while since I've been there. I went there for one day when I went to school in Texas for a little while. And yeah, so it's kind of fun checking out San Antonio. Yeah, but I know you've done a lot of other travels that did not involve conferences.
Yeah, I'm like, have I guess? Like, you forget by now.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, well, I went back to Tucson like a week and a half later to pick up Hannah and bring her back from school. And then we were home for like a week. And then we did our 2-week trip to Japan.
Yay.
And then I was home for like, 2 weeks. And I just did a real quickie trip to Glacier National Park area.
Right. I forgot you went to Glacier and I went to Iceland. I forgot to mention that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm blanking on June. I forgot June even existed. Sorry, I was just focusing on up to May. But yeah, definitely.
Great.
So it was. I didn't get to experience the Iceland you got to experience because we stuck around Reykjavik and just explored a couple of attractions that were around there. So it was a quick trip. But Mia is quite the little outdoor lover and culture lover. So I definitely want to go back to Iceland with her because I know she'll just love to do some of the exploration that you've done.
I was going to say, I'll meet you there.
Yeah, definitely. That would be
It's
fun.
always like I'm always ready to go back there. Yeah, well, I'll definitely put all of these links to articles in our show notes so you guys can read more. But I think
that's a good way to do it. But I think we should dive into Japan because it is a very hot destination. I'm still so sad because ours was canceled. We were supposed to be going in April 2020. So we switched off and now you got to finally live the vacation that I was dreaming about back then. And I think we should give everyone just a really quick rundown because I know that you have done an amazing job of writing a whole bunch of articles that are really going to be useful for people who are planning a trip to Japan. So let's just start off and kind of give you an idea of how many days were you there and how maybe did you break up your itinerary?
Yeah, absolutely. So we took 2 weeks because especially coming from the East Coast, it's just such a long trip. And I mean, honestly, it's been on the top of our bucket list for so long, but we just haven't had 2 weeks where we felt comfortable to go that far knowing we're going to deal with jet lag on the way back. And then the flights are just always so expensive. But at least I was able to use points for one of our flights. Mm-hmm. So we took 2 weeks. I flew out on a Saturday morning. Yeah, so I got there on a Sunday. And then we were supposed to come back on Saturday, but we came back on Sunday because of a weather delay. But anyway, so I did 5 days in Tokyo, 5 days in Kyoto, and then 3 nights in Osaka. And, when I first started planning the trip, a lot of people told me that I would only need like 2 or 3 days in Tokyo. But as I was looking at everything that we wanted to do, I was like, I really feel like I could easily spend a week here. It's just such a fascinating city, There's just like the ultra modern and then there's the more traditional and each neighborhood is so huge. I think what many people don't realize is just like how large the cities are. It's funny, I was talking to my mom before I left, and I don't think she's kind of kept up on modern times as much. There's no way she's listening to this podcast, so I can say it. But she was like, oh, like there's, I showed a picture when we went. She's like, skyscrapers. I wasn't expecting that. Like, I'm like, what do you think? It's like rural villages? But I'm like, this is the biggest city in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So it's so huge. And I'm used to kind of going to Europe where even though the cities can be really large, like we always stay in like that historic, more central area where you're mostly walking, like you're taking, the metro, but like you're primarily walking around a lot, and you may pick a neighborhood. I think about like Paris, you kind of pick a neighborhood each day, but, in Tokyo, it's like, to get to a certain neighborhood might be 45 minutes, on the, couple of connections with the subway and stuff. So I'm glad that we did 5 days. I could, and that was without doing the Disney stuff, which I know many people like to do when they go there. So
yeah, I do know that like as a Disney person, it would be hard for me to go to Tokyo and not do Disney, at least Disney Sea, because it's considered a really, really unique park.
That's what everyone says. It's like unlike any of the others. Yep. So I get it, but we're just, we're not as into the theme parks. And Glenn was like, I am not going around the world to go to theme parks.
Exactly.
Like,
I mean, when you have limited, it's totally valid. I mean, it's very hard to figure out. I agree. I mean, I get what he's saying, but I also have that side of me that's like, oh, but how can you be this close and not do it? So it's very hard to balance that. So it sounds good. So you were saying, I know you guys, so I'm picturing Tokyo for my own planning. So you guys were kind of in the western side of where you look at the downtown to the
the Shinjuku neighborhood, which some people were like, oh, do you want to stay there? Like it's kind of like Times Square, and the area right around the train station is lots of neon, lots of kind of crazy, especially at night. But we were honestly within like a 10-minute walk to that, but where we were was more like business, like government buildings, things like that. So it was really quiet, peaceful. Like it was great. And we stayed at the Hilton, Tokyo, and it was basically on top of, like, you could go just down an escalator and connect to 2 different subway stations. Plus they had a free shuttle if you wanted to the Shinjuku train station. So it was really very accessible. It felt very convenient. Yeah. And there was plenty of, restaurants and things around, but it wasn't like super expensive. Like I don't know how expensive really, but the Ginza area is like much more high end. Yeah. And then the Shibuya would be nice, but it totally worked for us. We were happy with it.
That's perfect. Yeah. I had looked at staying in the Ginza area because of I was also liked that it was closer to the Disney side. So it was a little easier to get out there. For those of you planning, Ginza area is basically opposite, diagonal across from where Tamara stayed. So I've heard the same thing from my research. You really have to allow a lot of time to transfer if you're going to different sides of like what you consider the downtown center, 45 minutes to get across sometimes. So kind of crazy. Great. Well, what were some of the highlights then that you guys did when you were in Tokyo?
We did a sushi making workshop with True Japan, and we really enjoyed it. Like it was, I don't know, the ladies were just like really friendly and funny and nice. And so it was, kind of fun to see like what goes into making sushi. You probably know that I'm not a sushi eater, really. And we can talk about food later because it worked out better than I expected, except for a couple of times. But it was just fun. It's like such a huge part of the culture. So like I enjoyed that. We didn't do like a whole lot of tours and things. We did a lot of exploring on our own. Yeah. But the one thing that like everybody has to do, which was as amazing as you would think, was the Team Lab Planets, which is that immersive art experience where there's water and flowers and reflections. And it's just unlike anything else. And it's really cool. And we've done like the traveling, like Van Gogh immersive experience. But this was, turn that up like, times 10 or more, and Hannah awesome. Really loved it. It was really cool. So the thing about it is you definitely have to book your tickets like well in advance because, it's just one of those things. You have a timed entry. It's super popular. Right. So and honestly, when it comes to planning Japan, you really need to plan like really far in advance. I mean, if you want to get restaurant reservations, like some of them book up like a month in advance, I think because some of them are so small, that if they do take reservations, it might be for 8 seats. And so they just go really quickly. And we weren't even there during cherry blossom season or Golden Week in early May when it's like extra busy. But I would say like those are definitely highlights. I liked, I just loved exploring different areas. We did go, surprisingly, I liked this, but we went to a sumo wrestling tournament.
Yeah, I wonder.
When sometimes when people are there, they can see like a practice. But there was actually a tournament going on while we were there. So that was something that I had figured out ahead of time. And when the tickets went on sale, I was able to book those like, the day that they were released. And it was a very cool kind of thing. Like you don't want to spend hours and hours there because you don't know who the guys are, but just like you could see how excited everyone was to cheer for their favorite, the local person or whatever. And it's just such a dramatic, like theatrical type of sport. It was interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
So those are some of my highlights.
That's awesome. Did you have any, because I know I saw some of the restaurant experiences you had. It seemed like sometimes you guys went simple and basic, but other times you went really over the top. So anything in Tokyo that you think somebody should splurge on, or any, savings tips for food or eating in Tokyo other than, the restaurants making the reservations?
Yeah, we did mostly the casual kind of places in Tokyo.
Yeah.
And what I was trying to do, because I'm not a sushi eater, is have a variety of foods. And, in Japan, all the restaurants really specialize in one thing. They do ramen, they do tempura, they do soba noodles, like different things like that. So there's so many different styles of food to try within Japanese cuisine that we just booked a different style of food each night. And honestly, and some of them we had to line up for. Like the first night that we got there, we went to a place where it opened at 5 and we got there at 4:45 and there was already probably 40 people in line for like a 10-seat little place.
Oh, wow.
And you would wait till there was enough space in line. There was people sitting at the counter eating and then people standing behind them waiting for like the second that they got up to like sit in their seat.
Oh,
and
wow.
you had a vending machine, which is kind of typical, like a vending machine to order from. So it's typical in a lot of like ramen shops. So there's like pictures and you just like hit the button of what you want. You put in the money, you get a ticket, and you hand
that's like McDonald's.
The ticket. It's kind of like the
those like screens in the middle. They have one at Tim Hortons. Well, but
So of course I made a mistake the first time because I saw people with like a broth, which I thought was a ramen, and then a bowl of noodles. And I'm like, ooh, that. So I saw on the machine that they had dipping noodles and they had ramen, and then you could add like extra things, but like only if you could tell what the picture was, because it was otherwise in Japanese. And so I ordered dipping noodles because they looked really good, and ramen because I thought that that's what people had. And then when I handed the girl the ticket, she was like, for one person?
Oh no.
And she's like, you want small or large? Because I was like, oh, is that not what they have? And she's like, no, they have like, because the dipping noodles come with a broth. So I thought it was that they had 2 different things in front of them.
Oh, I'm following you. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
But I'm really glad that I did it because both were delicious. So I'm happy to like sample both.
Yep.
But then Glenn ordered on his ramen scallions.
Yes.
And it was covered. It was like a mountain of scallions.
Oh my goodness.
I was like extra, but it was like if you get extra cheese on a pizza and it's like extra
oh my
cheese,
goodness, crazy. So, I mean, I love scallions, but I don't know if I could handle a mountain of them.
It was crazy. So we, you make those like little mistakes, but we did a lot of the more casual things. And the hard thing is that honestly, I kept saying this, but there's very little in between. So there are the places where first of all, Japanese people love to line up, which is really hard when you're visiting and you're tired and like you want to be able to eat with a certain time. People will wait for 2 hours to get into this like little ramen place or whatever.
Goodness.
So it's, because you're like, I'm tired. I've been walking all day. Like we were putting like 5 to 9 miles, we were doing like a lot of walking every day. So I'm like, I just want to sit down. So that's why we tried to do some reservations, but there were the really casual, inexpensive, like really inexpensive places. And then there's like the crazy, crazy high end, like some of the sushi places, I'm like, there's no way. Because some of them charge up to like $500 a person.
Oh my goodness.
Insane.
That's crazy.
So there's just not a lot of middle ground is what I found.
Okay,
but
good to know.
The low end, like not low end, but the inexpensive stuff is really, really good.
Yeah, of course. You just have to be willing to wait for it.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, like one day, so we had a bit of a rough start because Glenn had a stomach bug like the day before we left. So like the whole flight over and everything, like he basically didn't eat for like a couple of days. And then I had a really bad cold like the day before we left, or 2 days. I was like so nervous. I'm like testing. I'm like, please don't let it be. And it wasn't. It was just a cold, but I was still like super congested. So it was just hard. And in Japanese like society, you shouldn't like blow your nose in public. Yeah. So I'm trying to be like so discreet, like going like outside and like blowing my nose and sanitizing and tucking it into my pocket, like very, like trying to be like really conscious of that and trying to be super sanitary. But Hannah did end up getting a cold also. And so one day she was just like not feeling up to like going out and doing a tour and stuff. So we're like, just stay here and sleep. It was going to be the day that we toured one neighborhood and then we went to the sumo wrestling, and she wasn't super into that anyway. So we're like, just sleep. And then she went out like on her own, and she found a 7-Eleven because just like everybody says, like 7-Eleven has amazing convenience food. So you can buy these like really good sandwiches and all that kind of stuff. So there's definitely plenty of ways that you can eat cheap there.
That's good to know. So then from Tokyo, you went to Kyoto.
Yes.
Via
Kyoto is such a different
bullet
vibe.
train, right?
Yep. Yeah, so a couple of things to know about the bullet train is that we had gotten the JR Pass, which allows you to use all the JR trains. We got the national ones, so you could use bullet trains as well, except the super fast ones weren't included. And we had gotten one that allows us to make seat reservations. And you also, if you're bringing luggage on the train, you now need to make a reservation for the luggage. And this is for more of a checked bag size luggage, not the carry-on size. But we were there for 2 weeks, so we had checked bags, Yeah. So you can make a reservation for like the last row of seats where the luggage can go behind you, or there's a couple of spots on like a luggage rack, but they're really cutting down on luggage on trains. Or you can ship your bags ahead, which we ended up actually a couple times just shipping our bags ahead, and it only costs like $20 a bag. It's waiting for you in the hotel when you get there. It takes 24 hours, so you need to have like a small bag with all your stuff for the one day. Yeah.
Awesome.
But we took the bullet train, and that worked really well. We saw Mount Fuji because it was a nice day out. So, and we ended up we got to Kyoto, and we just put our bags in a locker, and then we took a local train out to Nara, which is about a half hour away or so, maybe 45 minutes. And there's like a really beautiful, huge temple out there, but also it's known for their deer park, which Glenn years ago, because we both worked for a Japanese company, so he's been to Japan many times, but like 25 years ago. And so he would always tell us about the deer in Nara that bow to you to get fed.
Oh, right.
And the deer have changed a bit the last few years.
Yes. So I've heard about this stuff, that they have this issue at the monkey place too. Yeah.
They were so aggressive.
That's too bad.
They were grabbing my shirt and pulling on my shirt. They nipped my butt. And I'm like, whoa. So we all these videos of Glenn and I trying to run away from the deer. And we're okay, let's just get away from where the food is so that the deer are calmer. But it's funny because later in the trip, we went to the island of Miyajima, and they have wild deer there also. And one of them followed me into the visitor center, went over to the desk, grabbed a brochure, and then ran out because they like to eat paper. And so the person comes running out behind the desk, yelling at the deer. And then there's 3 people in the street trying to wrestle the paper away from the deer.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm you think of deer in the headlights, these gentle creatures.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of it's sad when humanity, it's I won't get there, but yeah.
No, it's definitely because there's too many tourists now. They're being fed. They're so definitely not a great situation. But we did enjoy the day trip out there, and it's
for sure.
Really, I love everything about Japan. It's just so clean and orderly and polite and easy to figure out. And my type A personality just really appreciates the order of things. The fact that everybody stands in a line and waits, and then you get on when you get on. I love that because in a society where everyone's pushing or whatever, I get super stressed out.
Oh my gosh, I hated it. We were on a cruise, a European cruise, and that attracts a lot of Europeans. And I thought, oh, you wait in line for your turn to go get your food that you want served. But no, people just come up from other directions and just walk right up. Like there's no line concept. And I'm like, I like lines. Like, what am I supposed to do? So sorry. I get
would
that.
love Japan.
Yeah.
I think, it's just such a wonderful place to visit. I think there must be challenges if you live there, within the culture. I recognize that. I used to work for a Japanese company. I'm aware of many of those issues. But as a visitor, it makes it so, so pleasant.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was going to say that they have, lockers where you can store things. Everything is just easy. Like the trains, everything is in Japanese and English.
Well, I know they did a big push with that before the Olympics were going to be there.
Yeah, that's probably
they were
a good
trying
point. And all of the trains have, like the signs that like say what the next stop is. Because sometimes you're on a subway and you're trying to look and you're like,
oh yeah,
and they might
announce
like, what was
it,
that?
But
you're like, right?
Yeah, what they say?
That's Charlie Brown's teacher talking.
Exactly. I've had that happen so many times.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that part was great. And Kyoto is just very different. So it is more traditional in the architecture. They preserved a lot of the traditional architecture. There's tons of shrines and temples. So that's the thing, is that you could get a little shrine and templed out, but like the architecture is so beautiful. There is like a downtown, center city that's more city-like, but it's nothing like Tokyo or Osaka.
Right. Yeah, I remember when we were looking to stay in Kyoto, I seem to recall, because we were going to go we were hoping for cherry blossom season, but I seem to recall it's still pretty spread out, and there's little neighborhoods in Kyoto even that's like, okay, this one has more of this vibe, and this one, I can't remember where we were staying, but I was looking at the different things, and like getting to bamboo forest, like, oh, well, I'd have to leave here, and we want to be near a train station, like all those plans,
exactly.
You really...
Yeah, you do want to be near a train station because the metro kind of system is not as well developed there. So we kind of took a mix of like buses, JR trains, private trains that you kind of paid for the same way you'd pay for a subway. Yeah. So, but when we stayed at the Hyatt Regency, which was probably about a 10-minute walk to one of the train stations, but there was a bus that stopped right outside that then went to the main Kyoto station, which is where we would get on to go to the bamboo forest. And then, so it was conveniently located, but you definitely needed to plan your travel because some of those destinations, especially many of them were taking slower local trains, and they could still take, like a 45 minutes to an hour.
That was one of the things in my planning that was the hardest, is recognizing that there are so many different train lines, like brands, and you might have a pass with one, but it doesn't necessarily mean you can go on every train that's coming in, so it's kind of an interesting thing that I've never... Yeah. I'm sure maybe it's in other places around the world, but it's not something we think about in the States at all.
The nice thing, though, is that we had our JR Pass, which, by the way, I don't even know if they're going to be that useful after this fall, because the price is almost doubling, it's going up a ton. So unless ticket prices are going up a lot also, you might just want to buy individual tickets. But we bought, as soon as we had ordered the JR Passes ahead, so we had our voucher that we had to turn in to get the actual pass, and then we went to an ATM because you needed cash for a lot of things, and we have to also use cash to get an IC card. So this is the rechargeable card that you would use to get on the metro or the buses and things like that.
Yeah.
But the nice thing is that unlike, I'm going to New York, I need a metro card. I'm going to this place, I need that kind of card for their subway system.
Yeah, like Long Island Railroad, a metro card. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this card, worked for all of them.
That's
and it also works for a lot of vending machines, some
the vending machine
convenience stores. So
and you reload it always with cash, though? You always have to reload it only cash? You can't reload it with...
which is so bizarre. It's this is a digital payment system, and I'm loading it with cash.
I wonder if it's because they want to make sure that you're actually paying for it. They don't want you to just be able to dispute it and have gotten the ride for free or gotten the food for, you know what I mean? I wonder if it's a culture thing.
I do know that it used to be, before COVID, a very cash-based society. Now more and more places will take a credit card.
Interesting.
And if you there's a lot of, not many places take Apple Pay, but a lot of them do take a tap kind of payment system, but more one that they have in Asia. So I don't know if it's really worth signing up and trying to figure that out.
Gotcha.
I just basically used the
IC card, and the
credit
ATM
card, anytime for that, and the
Perfect.
IC card for the metro, the bus, some vending machines, some required cash still. But it's just super convenient. So even though there are different trains, so maybe you can't use your free pass, not free because you paid a lot for it, but
the pass,
it's still pretty easy to get around.
Yeah, that's good. That's great. And I do want to quickly, before we jump over to finishing up Kyoto and going to Osaka, I did want to mention something that you did that I think was brilliant, because I even had looked into doing it when we were planning our trip. And that was, you had someone meet you at the airport, right?
Yeah, I did. And don't do it.
Oh,
at least not from the company that I did.
Here we go.
You and I had talked about it. I think it was about $75 to $100. It was the company that I bought the JR Pass from. I also arranged to rent a mobile hotspot, so that was like taken care of ahead of time to pick up at the airport, and I arranged to have a greeter meet us after customs. And then what I was told was that greeter would then take me to do the things I needed to do at the airport, which would be pick up my mobile hotspot, exchange my JR pass, get my IC card, find, where I need to go to get my transfer.
Get the train.
I figured, hey, it's not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things, and
especially after traveling for 20 hours.
Yeah, so
exactly.
This will be useful. It was such a waste of money because I'm trying to talk to the guy. I'm like, okay, we need to go to an ATM, and he's not even understanding what I'm saying. And I'm like, you're a greeter. Like, I'm not coming in there with like everyone should speak English, but like his job is to meet people.
Well, when you pay people, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and I know a lot of times they'll have, if you want it in English or if you want it in you can specify a language, but.
Yeah.
It seems
like one person had my name up, and then she called this guy over. So it's like a service they do for multiple people. They had multiple greeters there. And I don't know if I just got an inexperienced person, but I went to the counter of the mobile Wi-Fi hotspot place, and that person spoke perfect English, no trouble communicating at all. And
you were able to easily find everything. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he led me there, but I could have found it on my own. No problem. And then I was trying to explain that I wanted to go to the JR ticket office to get our pass, but also to see if he could help us make reservations.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I wanted to make the reservations as soon as I had my pass, because I wanted to try to get the luggage reservations.
Right.
And he was just like, oh no, like they don't do reservations here. And I'm like, oh, well, that's part of like why I wanted to pay for this service, because I wanted somebody to help me translate what my need was.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, like we're back and forth, like just not understanding each other. So then I get in line at the JR ticket office. I get up there, perfect English from the person that's like behind the desk, completely easy to talk to. They didn't make the reservations there. It told me like where to go in the Tokyo station or Shinjuku station, whatever, which I did the next day. And that person also was, spoke really good English, was able to communicate no problem. And then I was trying to explain that I want to get like an IC card. And he was like, well, you can get the, one that requires a deposit or not a deposit. And I'm like, I don't care. Like, can you just tell me where? And he didn't know like where to go. Finally, the guy that was like behind me in line at the JR ticket office was like, oh, you want this line right here. And I'm like, thank you. And then, and I'm like, what? So then I had arranged for an airport limo bus to take us from the airport directly to our hotel. I just thought like first day, and it's inexpensive. Taxis there are very expensive, but this is inexpensive, and instead of having to like drag some bags on multiple trains and subways, I thought it's easy. And so I was like, I thought all that time would take us like an hour and a half maybe from the time we arrived.
Right.
So I had booked like a later bus, but it was really quick to do all of it. So I was like, ooh, maybe we can get an earlier bus. So I was trying to get him to help us like with that. No. And like, so I ended up just doing it on my phone, but then he had to come down and he's like, no, I have to wait. And cause I was like, okay, we're all set. Thank you. Bye. And he's like, no, I have to wait till like you get on the bus. I'm like, all right, well, can you just like stand over there? Cause I'm,
oh my gosh,
like, I'm done.
Yeah, exactly. Like you did not help me. Wow. Okay. Well, that's good. Good tip. Good to know.
Yeah. What not to do, I guess.
What not? Yeah. No, I mean, it's good because I had considered that too, because I was thinking the same thing. Like, oh my gosh, how am I going to get my pass? How am I going to, I was thinking all that same stuff. So yeah. Cool.
I think like a lot of things with travel, it feels so overwhelming, but once you're there, you're like, oh, this is not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Well, especially in a country that's, you can't even get around with, it's like, oh, I speak a little Spanish, I speak a little French, and it's just like, none of that's going to help you.
Yeah.
So, and you don't want to go in being a, ignorant traveler who's just like, oh, why don't you speak my language in your country?
Exactly.
I can't stand people like that. But anyways, okay, good to know. So anything else about Kyoto you wanted to mention? I did think it was awesome, your little tip about the bamboo forest. It wasn't really a tip, but I was so happy that you had that experience because I've heard the same thing.
Yeah, I saw, when I was there, even saw some people on Instagram that seemed to be there at the same time, but like a couple days before me. And they showed like just this mass of people like walking through. And because the word is out that for many of these things, you need to get there early. And so even if you show up at like 7 a.m., there's still like this massive crowd of people like funneling through this little area.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do that. It was an hour away. Like no one's getting up at like 5 a.m. to like get to a place by, 7 or whatever, just to take a photo like that. My family doesn't roll like that. They're like, I don't really care about your photo.
Yeah, exactly.
We just want to see it. And so we decided to sleep in a little bit. We had lunch. Then we went to the monkey forest. And I will say that whole like Arashima.
Yeah,
I don't know exactly how to pronounce it, but I think it's like Arashima area is, for a touristy area, is so much nicer than I expected. It was really lovely, and there's a really pretty river that runs along that on some days you can rent boats. Like, it was really nice. Anyway, so we went to the monkey park first because Glenn loves monkeys. Although it's such a steep climb up there, he was like, this better be worth it. Actually, it was Hannah that was like, this better be worth it for your monkeys. But it was cool. Like, we saw a lot of baby monkeys. The monkeys were not aggressive at all. They just like hung out as long as you didn't, you followed the rules and you weren't like staring at them in the eyes to like challenge them or something.
Yeah, okay.
And then we went to then we went to a temple, then went to the forest. So we got to the grove, not really a forest. It's much smaller than you think it's going to be. We got there maybe like 2:30, 3 o'clock, and it was fine. Like there was people there, but no crush of crowd.
Yeah, that's
and
awesome.
Plenty of space to like, have a photo. Like, yeah, there's people in the background, but that's fine. Like, honestly, we just wanted a couple like family photos. I'm not like going to win an Instagram competition over it, but it was nice. And it's really beautiful. It's really pretty. But sometimes I think doing the opposite of what everyone says you should do can work out.
Especially when it's been around for so long, people are saying do that. Because, I mean, it's very much like, oh, the gates open at 7. And so everyone who's built up, it's just like Disneyland. People say, oh, rope drop. And you get there. And if you get there late, like there's such a long line to get in. And then people come 30 minutes after opening and they walk right up to the turnstiles, So it's, there's something about that. So.
Yeah. And I looked at like Google Maps is wonderful. It was so helpful for the travel, like figuring out the trains, because it would say like what platform, but also like what car to get on if you were transferring. And then when you were leaving the station, what exit to take, because those train stations are huge. So you're like,
that's so stressful.
You don't know where you are when you come out. So it was really, really helpful. And it would tell you like 8 minutes, 3 stops, here's the name of your stop. This is how much it's going to cost. It was really
that's good
very helpful. But you can also look for attractions and it'll show you like the busiest times, like a little graph.
Yes. Yep. Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, it looks like 10 to 2 is super busy. Like, who knows how accurate it is, but let's go after it.
Yeah.
It worked out.
I have a good article about how I use Google Maps, and you can make like a custom and save your own map, like to help you with your planning, to help see stuff, like for not just road trips, but also when you're planning like a city vacation. But that's a good thing. I forget about how they have that busy season section. I should add that to my post because
and
that's
also,
a useful thing.
When you're trying to figure out, especially for public transportation, many times like the night before, I would look like, oh, how long is it going to take? Because we need to know like what time should we be done breakfast, what time do we need to leave, and I like that there's a little drop down where you can say like when you're departing or when you want to arrive, because it changes. Especially public transportation may not have as many trains like when you're looking late at night versus when you're going in the morning.
Totally.
So
that's awesome. Yeah, I know. I always worry about the train, like the car thing, because even in New York, sometimes I've been like, because I'm not used to using trains often. And so when I first started going to New York and doing that, like the Long Island Railroad and stuff, they have certain cars they don't open the doors to all the time. And so, during different hours of the day. And I'm always like, oh, how do I know what car I'm in? And it's definitely one of those like Charlie Brown teacher's voices. Right. Sometimes I'm like, I have no idea where I'm at.
And that's the other great thing in Japan. It's like, they're on the pavement on the platform, it has numbers, so it's like exactly what car that's going to be.
Oh man.
And then everyone lines up single file behind those, like on either side of the door.
Yes, on either side of the door
for everyone to come out, and then they go on. It's lovely.
Nice. Okay, so then your last little stop was Osaka. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that? Because I know I had planned that we were going to fly into Tokyo and out of Osaka, but you ended up going back to Tokyo to go home. But what did you do in Osaka?
Yeah, flying out of Osaka would be ideal, but for us, like Delta doesn't do that. So we had to go back to Tokyo. So Osaka is known as the Japan's kitchen. So it's known for its street food. Okay. So I knew I wanted to take a food tour when we were there because it's just, that's really one of the things it's well known for. So I ended up, we actually got there, we explored a little bit. We did the Umeda Sky building, which actually Glenn did not do. No surprise that when we went up high, especially like there's these glass enclosed elevators that go between two towers, like on the 39th floor. And he was like, are you kidding me? Like, no way am I doing that. So Hannah and I did that. And then that night we actually went to a baseball game, which was really fun because, Japanese culture is like really into baseball. And it was like being at a college game in a way because they were playing Hiroshima, so that's not far away. So like half the stadium were Buffalo fans and half the stadium were Carp fans, and they all sat on like the right side. So it's like one half was red, one half was white, and they each had like a cheering section and a band. And so you felt like you were a little bit at a college game with like the marching band kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So it was a lot of fun. But then the next day we took a food tour with Arigato Travel, and they have food tours in multiple cities. So if you want to do a food tour in any of the cities, I would definitely recommend them. The guide was amazing.
It seemed like you had a really good time.
Yeah, she was really wonderful. And she had lived in the U.S. for a little bit. I think she went to the University of Wisconsin. She lived somewhere else in the Midwest too, but it's just such a funky, fun city. And we toured this area called Shinsekai, and it was built after World War II to attract Westerners, and it has more of like a Coney Island vibe is what they were going for. So it has like carnival games and like all these street food things. It's just so funky and retro. And like, I think anywhere else I would have been like, oh, this is cheesy, but it was actually really cool. And all throughout that area and the Dotonbori area of Osaka, all of the food places, it's like Vegas for food places because they all have these like three-dimensional facades with like a giant octopus or a giant crab, and they're like moving and lit up, and it's just so funky. There was one place where you could like fish for your own fish and then they cook it for you. Mm-hmm. It's almost hard to describe, but it is just bright lights, really funky, interesting, but like lots of street food, lots of like fried food on a stick or
like a fair. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, like the takoyaki octopus balls is like, that's where that's from. So that's like really huge. Afterwards, we went to the Dotonbori and we had my family always laughs at me because for some reason I can never get this out. And Hannah and Glenn are like, why can you not say this word? But okonomiyaki. So it's like the pancake type of thing with like egg and cabbage and other things like thrown in that they make on like a griddle in front of you. So they have it in Kyoto and other places, but it's like really known there, and in Hiroshima also they have like slightly different versions. So that was just, it was fun. So like to do all the street food stuff, to have the good food tour, we really loved that. And then on our what was supposed to be our last day, we went to Hiroshima and we did like a tour. I have a whole itinerary where it has a link to the tour company that I booked, and our guide was really sweet. He was wonderful. Awesome. Highly recommend that. So we did the whole like atomic bomb dome and museum, which was like really heavy, obviously. Yeah. And you have like very confused feelings about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Being
our role in that.
Yeah.
but then we went to Miyajima Island, which is just a short like ferry ride. And it is, it's just beautiful. We were there, it was raining. So there was like all these like mist and clouds on the mountains. And it just had this like magical kind of feel to it. But it was such a, like, I would love to spend a night there. And like when it wasn't overcrowded, but like when the people left, you know, have it
be
more
able to stay. Yes. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But there's a really famous like Torii Gate that's in the water that looks during high tide like it's floating, or when we were there during low tide, so you can like walk out to it.
Okay.
And just like a shrine. It's just like a really pretty, lush. That's one thing that really, I don't know why it surprised me, but Japan outside the cities it's so lush. It's like you're like, oh right, these are islands.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what I liked about Kyoto too, because it's like a city that's like nestled like in a valley surrounded by these lush mountains, not like towering mountains, but
and it has
really
like a
lush,
nice little river or stream or something going through it too. So
So that was how we finished, and I loved that. And then, unfortunately, then we got like stuck in a delay on a train coming back because there was a lot of rain. And then we found out our train for the next day to get back to Tokyo in time for our plane was canceled. And we were hoping it was going to be all fixed by the morning, but Glenn woke up at 5 and he saw it wasn't. And so then we were up for like a couple hours trying to figure out like, what are we going to do? Like, because we were like, oh, we'll fly up to Tokyo. And by then all the planes were booked until like 3 p.m., but we had a 6:25 flight, and we would have had to get like our luggage, get to another terminal, recheck it, and we're like, that's never going to work. Like if we get there at like 4:15 or 4, I don't know, 4, it was like 4:30, 5 o'clock or something is when we would have arrived. Never would have worked. So we're like, all right, like let's see if we can stay an extra night here, and let's book stuff for tomorrow, and like let's call Delta and see if they can switch us. So then we had like such a long travel day home because we flew from Osaka to Tokyo, and then we had to do Tokyo to LAX instead of Tokyo. We were booked on a Tokyo to Atlanta. So then at least the last little leg is short.
Yes.
Then we're in LAX for like 4 hours. We just like, we sat
6-hour flight.
Well, and then it ended up being delayed.
Oh, no.
So we came out, we were luckily at the lounge, and we actually went on the patio. They have the Delta Lounge, and LAX has a patio. So it's loud, but it was just nice to get fresh air after all that time.
Yep.
And so and I actually went and I took a shower. I didn't even have any clothes. We had even checked everything. So I didn't even have any clothes to change into, but I'm like, I'm just taking a shower anyway.
For sure.
And so, so then we came out of the lounge, we're like, go to the gate, and they're like, oh, we're waiting on a crew member still. We're going to wait to board you. And then they started boarding. So we're like, okay, I guess everything's all set. And then we're sitting on the plane, and like an hour later, they're like, okay, the pilot's now in the parking lot. And we're like,
oh my gosh.
Seriously? Like, it was the pilot, and like they weren't even on premises when you boarded us. Like, so we were delayed a couple hours. So we got home at like 3:15 in the morning. We'd been going for like 30 hours, I think, or more, like 33 hours maybe.
Well, so did you have any of the upgraded seating for any of those legs?
Luckily, because we had booked our tickets in Premium Select, which if you know Delta, there's like Delta 1, which is like the nice like pod lay flat kind of thing. Then there's Premium Select, which has like a footrest that comes out and it reclines, but not like all the way, but it reclines some. Then there's Comfort Plus, which is basically like a regular seat with a little more leg room. Like main
economy.
Cabin. Yep. So the reason we went through LAX is that's what we could get for Premium Economy.
Oh, good.
I mean, Premium Select on that. The longest leg from Tokyo to LAX. Yeah. Then LAX to Boston doesn't have that. So, I think we were in Comfort Plus. I don't even know at that point. Like it was, I was uncomfortable, that's for sure. But and then we flew into Boston, which we had flown out of Providence. So my car is still in Providence. So I had to get a car service to like pick us up, bring us back. And then the next day I'm like, Hannah, can you drive me down to get my car? So whatever. That's like a whole long story.
And it sounds like you guys had an amazing trip, and it was awesome. And I know, like I said already and mentioned, Tamara has quite a few blog posts, and she'll link them in the show notes, but you can also just go to We3 Travel. I'm sure it's pretty easy to find them. But I know she has all of her itineraries that are, if you guys know Tamara, they're very in-depth with a lot of detail. So it's super helpful if you're thinking of planning a trip. And I think it was great. I'm glad you guys had a good time, and glad I got to hear about it a little more.
Yeah, it was definitely a bucket list trip, and I think being there and being together as a family was wonderful.
Yeah.
And I think we all acknowledge, like, we don't know when we're going to have that kind of opportunity again. Just knowing, Hannah's going to be very busy the next few years. And so, I mean, she's going to be more than happy to take a trip with us when she can, but I just don't know when that will be. So
exactly.
I'm glad we got to do it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Perfect.
So what's next?
Yeah. I don't even know.
No. What day is it? What month?
I don't exactly. The big thing on my agenda, I'm trying to take the summer off a little bit. We do have a trip up to Canada to visit family coming right up for Canada Day. So happy Canada Day to those of you Canadians that might be listening, and then happy 4th of July to the U.S. Americans that are listening. And we are doing that. And then I have kind of a fun trip. You'll be moving Hannah back to school, but I am going to be flying to Kenya and doing a Masai Mara JW Marriott stay, which I just got a steal on points for. And I'm using points to fly some nice flights as well. So that's what's coming up for me. My fall is going to be kind of crazy and booked again, but at least it looks like I'm trying to keep my summer a little more calm. Although that Africa trip, I cannot wait. It's during the wildebeest migration. Trip to be like, I'm really excited. It's going to be during the wildebeest migration too. So hopefully we'll get some amazing pictures. I got to rent a lens. It reminds me.
I was telling somebody about the points deal that you got on that.
Yep.
Like, everyone just can't even believe it. Like, what a lucky straw that was,
Yeah.
But
oh my gosh, it was amazing. Like, I don't know if this would work always, but just a little tip for you guys. If you guys are points people, if you know of any like future opening hotels, that haven't opened yet, like that are opening in the future, just kind of like maybe keep an eye on their points rates, because that's what happened. This hotel hadn't opened yet. It was opening in April, and in February or something, I saw someone mention, oh my goodness, they're having, they've got nights for 20,000, 20-ish thousand points a night. And with Marriott, if you book 5 nights with points, you only pay for 4 nights. So it's like book 5 nights, get 1 free kind of thing, or I don't know how to explain it, but
it's an all-inclusive property.
And it's all-inclusive property. So all the game drives are included, all the meals are included, everything. And I'm paying 93,000 points total for 5 nights for 2 people. So
that's like 1 night at a nice city hotel.
Yeah, I know. Like, I mean, I was looking at a Fairfield Inn in New York in January, and they were like 65,000 points. Yeah. So gives you a little idea there. But anyways, so that's what's up for me. But what about you?
As you hear this, I will probably either be in Scotland or Wales. Depends on how quickly we get this out.
Yeah.
So I leave shortly for a week with a couple of other travel writers, a week in Scotland, a week in Wales. And then I'm going to be home for a couple weeks. And then I'm actually going to have 2 weeks in France, which I don't think I've even had a chance to tell you about. But I'm going to Glenn and I are going to go to France. And we're doing the Taste of Bordeaux river cruise on Amma Waterways.
Oh, nice.
And then something else that came up, I was invited to do like a press trip on European waterways, which does hotel barge cruises. And I was trying to look at dates in the fall, but they didn't have any availability. But they're like, well, how about this one on August 6th, which would have been the day I was flying back from France. And I was like, well, I will already be in France. It's to an area that I've been to before. So I was kind of hoping to see something new, but I think it just works out for me to kind of do this back to back, like a more traditional river cruise versus a hotel barge cruise, just to have these new experiences. Because, I'm not like a big ship person, but I'm definitely been wanting to try some of these other types of things. So, and my friend Michelle is going to come join me for that one, because Glenn can't stay
take off that full time. That's awesome. Yeah.
So and then as soon as I get back, Hannah will come back, and we have 1 day at home, and then we fly her to Arizona.
Okie dokie. Well, thank you guys for tuning in again. If you're still with us and still listening, as you can see, we have a few trips on the agenda, so we're not quite sure when we'll make another episode, but as always, we always appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll try to share again soon.
Yeah, hopefully maybe the end of the summer.
Talk to you later.
All right, bye-bye.